right, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, it's now time for us to shift our focus to another company. Well, Digantara, it's an Indian space surveillance startup. It has recently raised $50 million in a new funding round as the company moves beyond space situational awareness into missile tracking. It cited a growth demand from governments for space-based defense capabilities. And in fact, to understand how the company is going to look at deploying that funding and the core focus areas of the company, which ones are those going to be? It is also planning operations in the US, expanding operations in the US. How is the US business going to be different from the Indian business? To talk about all of that and more, I'm now joined by Anirudh Sharma. He's the founder and CEO of Digantara. Thank you very much, Anirudh, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. Congratulations, first of all. You have just raised $50 million in a Series B round with participation from Ronnie Screwvala, Peak 15, and Kalari Capital. How do you plan to deploy this fundraise, and which part of your business do you plan to strengthen with this offering, given that the company now plans to move away from situational awareness?
The first thing is that we are still working towards building that space situational awareness infrastructure. At this point in time, we're deploying this funds mainly into developing infrastructure for both space situational awareness and also missile detection and tracking programs. And this basically is because of the fact that we, at this point in time, have a lot of customers from defense, where we had to sort of pivot some of our solutions, rather I would say evolve some of our solutions to meet our end user requirements. Now, talking about fund deployment, I would say approximately around 10 million we're deploying towards international expansion. And beyond that, everything else will go towards deploying satellites in orbit. And this will be a mix of both space situational awareness and missile detection satellites.
Right, Anirudh, since you plan about deploying satellites and expanding, how many satellites do you plan to deploy in 2026, and how many in all have you deployed this year? What are the specific capabilities and timelines for these constellations that you're planning?
So overall, we're looking at around 15 satellites for space domain awareness, mainly focusing on space-to-space tracking. This is on the space domain awareness part. The second part is around missile tracking and detection. So this particular mission is mainly geared towards tracking boost phase and free flight phase of a missile, because re-entry tracking is mostly done through radars and it is solved. So we're solving for a problem that is not solved yet using our space-based sensors. So that is something that we're doing with our missile detection satellites. However, we have to still do technology demonstration missions for these missile detection satellites. We're looking at doing it in the next 24 months or before 24 months for us to be able to launch a larger satellite constellation. In the case of space domain awareness, we've already done a technology demonstration mission. Based on that, right now we are scaling our infrastructure in orbit.
Right, so infrastructure focus is something that you're going to be looking at, but the deployment of $10 million you just spoke about for the US market, how are your deliverables in the American market different from the Indian market, and how do you manage conflicting interests, if any?
So what we've done is basically we've divided these two entities to work on two different topics. In India, we primarily focus on everything space domain awareness, building optics, and also satellite platforms up to 50 kilograms. But in the US, we're looking at larger platforms above 100 kilograms to 150 kilograms, where we not only build these platforms, also work on optics that are more geared towards missile detection applications, given we have a base there already with our end users. So that's how we've sort of differentiated our entities. But beyond that, I think these two entities have different customer orientation. That is mainly due to geopolitics, and we also work with different customers from the Indian entity. For example, Thailand, we recently tracked their satellites. We're looking at Singapore, we're looking at few other Asia Pacific countries from our Indian HQ. While in the US, we're looking at broader Europe, American ecosystem at this point in time.
All right. Now, speaking specifically of the US market, Anirudh, with Trump's Made in India, Made in America pitch, I beg your pardon, is that a concern for Indian companies like Digantara to expand in that geography? And how much of your business in America is backed by Made in India?
I would say the primary reason why we have an entity in the US is to be able to build products in America, basically manufacture in America and design in America. Hence, we are setting up a full-fledged production and a team there that focuses primarily on achieving uh, towards building American products. And that is mainly because our end users are defense, and it is important for us to comply to certain regulations of the local geographies. So in India, what we're doing is we're focusing primarily towards Indian defense as our primary customer. So a lot of things that we've started working on is basically to indigenize even the lens-based system, the optics, even the satellites that we're building in India is mostly Indian made. So that's how we've sort of differentiated these two entities. Now, talking about markets, I would say today for Digantara, India is still a larger market than the US, given we just started US office 1 year ago.
Right. Anirudh, now you started off this company when you were barely 19 years of age. Did you have a background on space technology? Was there any training involved? And how did you acquire these funds, which you did at the time when this domain wasn't very mainstream?
I think it was merely because of my interest towards aerospace and space sector. I did not have any education background towards any of the things that we're doing at this point in time. I would say our journey is very much serendipity because we did not plan for it. When we started, we were students focusing on understanding how a satellite would work and what should we do to be able to launch the satellite to orbit and what sort of problem statement should be solved for. At that point in time, we learned about space debris, and that's when we started looking at space traffic management as one of our areas that we would focus our research on. And then it became a company because we had to give an invoice because we were doing consulting as well to a few space agencies outside of India.
All right, Anirudh, let me also ask you earlier this year, Prime Minister Modi had tweeted about your mission squad, and that's a big deal given the fact that you're one of the very few startups that he's tweeted about in the space of space domain. But what does your product and services roadmap for the year look like? Of course, your mission squad was a humongous success, but what is it that you're looking at when it comes to your product and services roadmap?
I think we started with space domain awareness and building both ground-based and space-based sensors as a service to defense agencies, and then also look at selling just data and analytics to our commercial clients. But then, given the evolution, where we are heading towards is basically building that space defense industrial complex, because I see a huge gap in east part of the world of not having a company like Lockheed Martin to be able to do faster deployments of services to these agencies. Second, drive these product development based on certain innovation that basically strengthens sovereign capabilities of a particular country. And given everything that's happening all around the world, I think we're at the right time, right place to capture this opportunity of building that space defense industrial complex out of India.
Right, Anirudh. Just one final question before we let you go, and we have to talk about the company's financials. Your revenues have grown reportedly more than 10x, but going forward, what is it that you're targeting? Similar revenues, or you're looking at perhaps doubling these?
So we did do pretty well. In last couple of years, we were mostly doing R&D because it significantly takes our efforts in terms of building that foundation layer of everything that we want to build and we want to achieve. And today it's easy for us to evolve from just a space domain awareness company to also doing missile because we've built that foundation layer, which is really software defined and it is easy to scale, add more layers to it, and supply these services for different applications. So having said that, I think this year has been great for us. We did close a couple of significant contracts from Indian government and also in the US that gave us a good starting point for us to scale our revenues. And talking about 2026, we're looking our revenues to be anywhere between 25 to $30 million.
All right, so you're looking at strengthening India's capabilities via the services that you're offering. But on that note, thank you very much, Anirudh, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. Congratulations once again on that